Hi guys, and welcome to the intro for futsal, the beginners. So firstly, thank you to all of you that have put your hand up, most likely parents having their first experience with futsal, taking their kids along to the local centre. We can't thank you enough because without you, we wouldn't have these teams competing and we wouldn't have the guidance. As you can see in front of us, we have 5 set things that we're looking for in our coach education program. Firstly, we want to become the #1 futsal coach educator in Australia. We'd love to play attractive and distinctive futsal, and that will come in future courses. We'd love to create a passion for our sport. We'd also like to become and continue to be a socially inclusive environment over generations. But most importantly for you guys is, can we inspire the kids to play our sport, the great sport of futsal? So to get started, the basic rules. We often get asked what a good number of players is and how many players they need. So firstly, futsal is 5-a-side, so 5 players on the field, on the court at one time. A good number for a local competition is 7 to 8 players. That way you always have a couple of extras if needed. And they can sub on and off anytime they like. So it's called interchange. You don't need to let the referee know, but one player must come off the field before another one goes on. And that's just near the halfway line generally. Our referees in the local centres will guide you on that. At elite level, most elite teams have 10 to 12 players, but as you could imagine in a local competition, that just limits the time that probably kids will get. So we would recommend a good number is probably 7, maximum of 8 players in a local competition. If you get to 12 players in a local competition, we'd be saying, hey guys, how about making 2 teams to compete to give the kids more opportunity, especially in those younger age groups. Another question we get asked a lot is, how long do kids have to bring the ball back into play? So firstly, once the ball goes out of play in futsal, so once the ball goes out over the lines, it is out and it restarts with a kick in. So a little bit different to soccer with throw-ins and a little bit different to indoor soccer where there's no outs. So the ball does go out and they have 5 seconds. So that's the same whether it's the goalkeeper with the ball or if that's a player on the sideline. So generally it's a kick in, they have 5 seconds. So it's a 4 seconds, the referee will count to 4, and then on the 5th second, it will be then given to the other team if they take too long. So effectively, if you remember that they have, generally if you tell the kids 4 seconds, it makes them hurry up, but the rule is 5 seconds. Can a player go into the goalkeeper's area? That's a strange question because obviously it's something that's been in varied different types of indoor soccer over the years where players can't go into the goalkeeper area. But in futsal, they absolutely can. They can go anywhere they like and there's no offside in futsal. Once again, you cannot score goals from kick-ins from the side, but you can score direct from a corner. So it's a little bit confusing, but basically what I'd be teaching the kids at an early age is to always try and restart play by getting that ball in and playing with their teammates as opposed to just taking a big shot at goal. No slide tackles in AFA local competitions, and the main reason for that is that it's very difficult for our young referees to distinguish what is a slide tackle and what's a dangerous tackle. So we basically have the rule in place that no slide tackling in our local competitions, and that's an extra added rule on top of the normal rules, and that's purely for player safety here. And finally, the referee's decision is final. So I think the main thing from a coaching perspective is that you need to facilitate your players to play the sport and have fun. And it's not about what result there is at the end, because it's especially at the younger age, it's about developing a good way of playing futsal. And then that brings us to you guys. So as a coach, inspiring kids to play our sport sounds easy, but it's not that easy and sometimes quite daunting. But what I can assure you is that really what you need to do is simple. Make sure that kids have fun. Futsal is one of those sports that, and probably the best sport in the world in terms of creating a natural learning environment. So the natural learning environment on the pitch is already there. So the kids are always involved and the kids don't have anywhere to hide on the futsal pitch. So it develops all aspects of their game just by playing it. And we're one of the very few sports in the world where you can come in and just go and play a game and naturally improve in such a rapid rate. So facilitating that is the most important bit, making sure that they're positive, making sure that they have a good attitude, making sure that they're very good with their sportsmanship, and generally just helping them be good young kids having fun will be the best course of action. If you can speak to them, that's the biggest challenge. The way you communicate with the kids, that's the biggest challenge. Definitely not your tactical understanding, because that can be gained. Your way with kids or your friendly approach is far more important than your tactical knowledge at a younger age. Provide them with simple content. Simplify the game. Always make sure that they understand what they're doing. Always supply them content of what they can do. Never tell them what they can't do at a young age, because they obviously really need to learn for themselves on the pitch. Define what success looks like. So for some players, it may be very different to other players. Some players success may be to bring their teammates into the game, for example, whereas other players may be success for them looks like getting involved in the game themselves. So provide opportunities to develop, and obviously go to the next playing and coaching level once we're ready to do that. Some basic tips, I guess. We want to make the court as big as we can when we're in possession, so with the ball, and we want to close the court and make it as small as possible for the opposition team when we don't have it. So a very simple tip there is when we have the ball spread out and when we lose the ball, make sure that we come as close together as possible in defence and everyone does their job. And basically, no players are exempt from defending. So when you lose the ball, a very good tip to teach kids is that they have to get back behind a certain point. So it may be that as soon as they lose the ball, you tell them to come back behind halfway. You know, it might be back to a certain spot on the field, but it's very important you explain to the kids that the reason for that is to get them in the habit of coming back, and that it's not just the rule that's important. So if you set a rule as a coach and you say, look kids, I want you to all come back behind halfway, it needs to be explained why, for them to get the most benefit from it. Hitting the back post, so what that means is when they're shooting, a good little tip for them is to always shoot towards the back post when they're younger. The reason is because then you can start to teach in the future, once you know more about futsal, you can start to teach kids that they can arrive at the back post and they can make an effort to get to the back post, knowing that their teammate's going to shoot across goal and shoot at the back post is always worthwhile. It also means if you miss at the near post, so the closest post, so if you shoot there and you miss by a metre, the ball goes out. If you shoot to the back post and it's missing, maybe there's a chance that a player could follow that in and score. Whereas if you miss at the near post, that's not an option. So just little things for younger kids to start to think about before we get into a more expansive understanding of the sport. There it says they're defending with all players behind the line of the ball. So just like I said at the start of this one, that's a great practice, is to always be behind the line of the ball. And what that means is wherever the ball is, everyone's back behind that in terms of defending. But it's more about making sure that they always think to defend and they always think to attack, and that there's no specific positions for kids at this age. In terms of positions, futsal does have, generally 4 different positions. So there's flankers on each side, there's a target up top, and there's a back player at the back. They have varying different phrases that people use for those. And then obviously you have a goalkeeper. So they're the 4 positions that you have. Obviously 4 on the court and 1 in goal. If you're wondering why I've said 4 and not 5, it's because there's 2 flankers, so 2 wide guys. But also you can play with varying formations. I don't think they matter as a kid. As a kid, I think it's really important that you attack and you defend, and you're not really defined by a position. But if you want to start to get them a little bit more organised, you may put them into a formation such as 1 at the back, 1 forward, and then 2 flankers either side, or you may play with 2-2, which is 2 defenders and 2 attackers. But ultimately, they still need to do the attacking and defending, and you don't want to pigeonhole them at a young age where they can't then develop into further down the line. Goalkeepers are very important, so really important that you encourage swapping your goalkeeper. Very important that you encourage that's a really important position, so you don't see other kids sort of getting on the back of the goalkeeper if they let a few goals in. It's a pretty unforgiving position, so if you can glorify that at some stage early on, then that's great. And obviously your line of questioning and sportsmanship. So probably the biggest tip I would say as a coach is to always question what they are doing, not tell them what they should do. For example, you often hear people say, don't pass across goal. Now, for a kid, why would we say don't pass across goal when all of the best teams in the world for football and futsal do pass across goal? And the reason is we don't have confidence in our kids to do that because they don't have the skills yet. But I would suggest asking them what other options they may have, because if a kid passes across goal 2 or 3 times and every single time the ball gets intercepted and they can see the goal, really the results are irrelevant. That child will actually learn that that's not the right thing to do without us telling them. So I guess in a teaching sense, it would be like asking them what's 1 + 1, the answer's 2. Don't give them the answer of 2. Actually guide them towards their answer if you can. Training options. So this is a really important thing. There's only so much natural development you can do in any sport. Luckily for futsal, it has a lot. But there are so many options there for training your team. So a great way is to get your team training as a team. So you can hire courts from us. You can, in a lot of our centres, you can hire courts and you can take training sessions yourself, or you can hire our coaches to do that. In other places, we don't have as many opportunities to access courts, but we do have, for example, academies or little feet for young ones, futsal schools for beginners, and then academies for our more elite players. The other option where we are really limited on space is we offer online training. So you might have your team and you want to do training, but there's no venues and not a lot of time. So you might have just a skills session. So our online training is really skills based to get the kids' skills up, and it's based at a lower level. So potentially you could have your team do online training. The other thing with training is if your team doesn't want to train as a team, but you want some of your players to do training, there is an option for them to go in individually in all of these programs. So if you're unsure what's available, be sure to contact myself or contact your local centre for details, but I couldn't recommend training more highly. Just like every sport, the more you train, the better you get, and the much easier it will be for you coaches to have your kids playing well if they're doing training along the way with the experts. So finally, just to wrap up on a few things, for players, the opportunities are fairly simple. So as you can see on the screen there, and I will move my mouse around. So we're in the local competitions, which is in the middle. That's where you would start. And obviously AFA staff are in charge of the local competitions. From the local competitions, they can join academies. Okay, they can also join regional teams or state titles, which means they represent their local competition at a regional level or at a club level. From there, they can then be selected from those sorts of opportunities to then go on to state programs. So the logical steps are local competition and local trainings, onto state level or regional level, and then onto state representative level that play at the national representative level. So sort of just goes up like that: local, regional, state, national. And just like all other sports, it has all of those pathways depending on how invested you get in the sport, which hopefully we get a lot of those kids invested in the sport. And as we said, the main target is to have them inspired to be in the sport in the first place. Finally, for coaches, coach education, and this is the starting point. So as you can see there, number 1, introduction to futsal for beginners, very short course, and this is really just some basic tips for you to take into your weekly competition, where you really just have to encourage the kids to play. If you're interested in going further, then we do have the AFA Level 1 coaching course, which goes for 2 hours and is also can be varied mostly online, but we also do run some of those in person as well. AFA Level 2 is 50% online or 50% theory and 50% practical, where you do get assessed, and that's sort of a state coaching level. So AFA Level 1 would be, local competitions up towards academy. AFA Level 2 would be state coaching level, regionals, all of that type of thing. We have an AFA International Certificate, which is ultimately a Level 1, which is aimed at those that are going on our AFA international tours, which is an option for our coaches, the same as going to coach state teams. And then we go on to more highly advanced courses, such as a technical director certificate or the International Futsal Association online masterclass, which is a series of 1.5 hour sessions over a 10-week period. So I think it's really important to know that these are options there, but there are also options to be managers and to be involved in night managing, or there's jobs within our industry everywhere, and I would recommend that if you really love the sport, to get involved there. But I'm going to try and keep this under 20 minutes, and we've got 2 minutes to go, so thank you very much. And finally, I just wanted to say good luck, and we will enjoy seeing you in the local competitions. And if you need anything at all along the way, or you just need some tips, or you may be stuck on something, then please feel free to drop myself an email. And I hope that you found this interesting. I hope that you found it somewhat helpful. And yeah, good luck with beginning your coaching journey with AFA.